what did you want to be when you grew up?
What I really wanted to be when I grew up was I wanted to play for Leeds United. That's what I really wanted to do. And actually, obviously it didn't happen, but I had no idea what I wanted to do, and probably still don't. It's an odd one. What are you going to do when you grow up? Well, I'll think about it. I'm in my 50s now and I'm still thinking about it.
Yeah. Did you have anyone sort of around you who were in business for themselves?
No, it's interesting actually. I've thought about this a while. Both of my parents were in education. I believe my late grandfather was in retail, but I had nothing. My other grandfather he sold insurance, so there was nothing as a role model for me to get into business. And it wasn't even something I proactively thought about. It was a lot of my career I just sort of rolled with, and things happened.
Leeds. What is happening? Welcome to episode 22 of Working Hours, a show about a place called Leeds, a time called now, and an activity called work. My name is Simon, and you're listening to my guest Phil Fraser. This is another Zoom interview recorded on the 4th of August 2021. Do you want to be a better business owner? Do you want to take your business to the next level? Then you need yourself a business sounding board. You need Phil Fraser. Phil Fraser successfully founded, ran and subsequently sold a multi-award-winning online gambling affiliate business in a multi-million-pound sale to a PLC. He's been there, done that, and got the t-shirt. He now offers his knowledge and expertise to SME business owners who want to grow and develop their business to that next level. I predict that this is going to be my most listened to show so far. Phil is very good at podcasts. There's a lot of information to take in on this one too. I hope you enjoy it. And then if you do enjoy it, go and listen to some of the other episodes too. They're good. If you're a loiner and you're listening to this and you think you might be able to answer some questions that you already know all the answers to, then please get in touch with me to arrange time for us to record you for this show. Email me at workinghourspod@western-studios.com with a short bio and some suggestions of your availability. Also, drop me a line if you have any queries or feedback, compliments or complaints. If you can be generous and wonderful enough to leave me a review, then please do so. I still haven't had any feedback, so it would be really good to see any. If you can leave a really good review for me, please do. That would be really good.
What is it that you're doing now then?
Okay, so now I'm offering my services as what I call a business sounding board. Okay. So I work with small and medium-sized business owners to be their sort of spare pair of eyes and spare pair of ears. The old cliche, it's lonely at the top. And, when you're running a business, you're expected to have all of the answers, particularly if you've got a team. The team comes to you and go, we've got this problem, Phil, what do we do next? Or, what's the business strategy for next year? And, some of the time you do think, shit, I don't know, why are you asking me? So actually having somebody else there at your side to bounce things off, to listen to the problems, to take a look from a different angle, really, really adds value to business. And I found this during my business journey, that and sort of reanalyzing it, looking backwards, 4 key stages of our business where external advice, really helped and really made a step change difference. So I don't call myself a business coach because I think that's a bit cheesy, and that market is to a degree full of charlatans. It's my role is sort of half coach, half mentor, half just somebody to scream at. And also in business, there are certain points that you can't discuss with your team. The classic being selling the business. You can't discuss that with your team. You need somebody else to talk to about it. Or it might be, something positive, like we're going to buy the competitor. Now, if you tell your sales manager we're going to buy the competitor, the first thing he thinks is, oh shit, he's going to keep their sales manager and I'm out of a job, which may or may not be the case. So there's lots and lots of things you can't discuss with somebody in the team, and that's pretty much what I offer.
So, in a way, are you kind of like a board for small companies, like a non-exec board? That's you've got this industry where you've got this business knowledge that you can bring to bear from an outside perspective of I can be objective about this. I can look at the business in business terms and go, you need to be doing this, you need to focus on that, I'd like to see more in this area. Is that reasonable, or are you more specialized or different?
It's part of that. It's part of that. What I try and offer is I'm working with the business owner for the business owner to make better business decisions. So I'm not necessarily going in to look at the business. I'm sitting with the business owner. So you mentioned sort of non-exec director and board. I have used the phrase personal non-exec director. So I'm non-execing the business owner rather than the business.
Yeah.
And it's not for me to tell the business what to do. It's often the business owner will talk to me and say, I'm thinking of doing, either X or Y or Z, or I'm not sure which of the three to do. Now, I won't say you want to do X or Y. I will say, okay, let's talk about X, let's talk about Y, let's talk about Z. And eventually the business owner will go, yeah, I'm going to go Y. But I've not told them to do that. They've worked it out themselves by me prodding and poking and asking the right questions. So I'm not giving answers, I'm just giving questions.
Yeah. And as well, it's also useful to have, for want of a better term, like a boss or a line manager or someone there to keep you to deadlines, keep you to things that you said you were going to do, and say, what's happening with this? That big idea that you had, why haven't you done anything on that? It's like, oh, well, I've been concerned with this. Yeah, but that's what you wanted to do. Why aren't you doing it? So yeah, that's a useful function to have. Where would you normally come in to a business? I mean, do you come in right at the beginning, or is it with businesses that are slightly established? Or
just going back on your point there, having an accountability partner is absolutely essential, and that is one of the roles I play. One of the beauties of running your own business is you can make the decisions. You go, I think we should do this, and you go off and do this, or I think we should do that and go off and do that. What you haven't got is absolutely, as you said, somebody going, well, you said you were going to do this. Have you done it? Now, as the boss of your own business, you've got nobody doing that. And that is a very, very important part of my role is, look, we discussed A, B, and C. You said you're going to do them by the end of the month. Have you done them? Now, if you haven't got somebody doing that, and, we're all, human nature says, well, I'm not going to do that because that's really difficult and it's really hard, or I don't want to do it. So I'll push, it's like, it's sort of broccoli on the plate.
Yeah.
You haven't got somebody there going, eat your veg. So it's that sort of role, but you're absolutely right. In terms of who I work with, it tends to be I looked at this initially when I was sort of determining who my audience was, and lots of people talk about, you've got to have a customer avatar and all that sort of thing. And I think my offering is for businesses sort of 500,000 turnover to maybe 4 or 5 million, because to that 500,000 point, I think you're in that, I can do everything, I can do anything sort of initial business buzz, and without overselling myself, you probably can't afford me. I think once you get to that sort of 500,000 mark, you're now in a position where you've got a proper business.
Yeah.
And you've got to start making proper business decisions. And, when you've got a team, that brings in all sorts of other things with, obviously just having a team always causes problems, but you've got things about delegation and responsibilities and report lines and all that sort of stuff. So it becomes, what I call proper grown-up business. And at that point, it is useful to have somebody just to sit down and go, Phil, can we just talk about this? And I'm thinking, sometimes I'm thinking of doing this. Is that okay? It's almost, we talked about accountability. It's almost an approval thing, because often, and I didn't set my business up till I was 32, and I'd never run my own business. So anybody who sets up their own business for the first time, there is that at certain points where you go, is it okay if I do this? And because you don't know, because you with a lot of business owners, you're making, and I was the same, you get as much information as you can, but to a degree, you're making it up as you go along. And actually having somebody to go, can I just double check this with you? Does this sound like a really stupid idea? And usually it's no, go for it, knock yourself out. But you in most businesses, you haven't got somebody to do that with. But as I say, as you're growing a small business, it's right. We'll just do everything and just get stuck in, and we'll learn as we go along. Once you get to that proper business size or grown up business size, then that's when probably my services are probably most valuable. But at the same time, I've worked with startups. As part of the joy of the startup is making all the mistakes, learning as you go along. And you go, well, if I press this button, what happens? It's that type of feeling when you're doing a startup. And what you don't want is somebody going, oh, don't press that button. You need the flexibility to press that button and see what happens.
Yeah. And because you're small enough, when the mistakes do happen, they should be small enough and they shouldn't be too damaging, hopefully.
Yeah.
And you want to get those out of the way early on, really.
And people always say, you learn by your mistakes. There's no benefit in me saying to somebody, oh, we did that and it didn't work, don't do that. It's just no benefit in doing that at all.
Well, I think it's either easier to identify the culprit as well with a mistake, whereas with a success, it's kind of like, well, there was a lot of variables to that.
Why was it successful?
Yeah,
why did it work? I don't know why it worked. Let's just try it again and see what happens.
If I do the same thing again, will it work again? Who knows?
Yeah.
So let's get round to how did you get into this? So you obviously didn't, you say you started your first business at 32. So let's go through that journey. How did you go into starting your own business, and how did you come from that business into doing what you're doing now?
Okay, so I had, as I said, I left school having no idea what I wanted to do. I fell into, I was a trainee accountant for a year, which was completely wrong for me. I then ended up selling advertising space in newspapers and magazines, which eventually took me to working in advertising in an ad agency in Leeds, where I was for 7 years, which is absolutely fantastic. So this takes me to sort of end of sort of 99-ish. And at that time, the ad agency, we were starting to get clients coming to us saying, I want one of these newfangled websites that I've heard all about. Sort of very similar to, we talked about this earlier, very similar to podcasts. I've heard about these new podcasts. I want one. And that was, it feels strange saying it now, but at that time we had clients going, I've read about these new websites. Make me one. You're my ad agency. Unfortunately, I was my role was account director, so I was sort of pseudo put in charge of what I suppose you'd now call a digital division. We were making it up as we were going along at the time, and sort of did that role for about a year, and then thought, there might be legs in this internet thing. It might, it might take off. It might take off. And having been in an ad agency for 7 years, and people will recognise this. When you're in a service industry, you a lot of the time you're recommending stuff to people. So in advertising, we think you should do this ad or this ad, and then the client decides which one they want to do. And I got to the point where saying, actually, I want to be the decision maker rather than just putting ideas. So I thought, okay, this internet thing looks like it might work, and I want to go client side. So I was fortunate enough to get a job at William Hill, whose head office was in Leeds at the time. And I was recruited to launch their first ever online casino. While I was at William Hill, we came across the concept of online bingo. I did a presentation to the board about online bingo and whether we should do it. They decided they didn't want to do it. Cut a long story short, I left William Hill, had a sort of eureka moment and thought, this online bingo might have legs. I'm going to go out and I sort of dusted off the presentation I'd done to the board, took it out to the market to get investment for what would have been the UK's first ever pay-to-play online bingo site. Failed miserably, but what I'd done as part of my research for the presentation was I built a website that listed all of the US, it was only in the US at the time, all the US bingo sites, and had a pop-up on there for some demographics so that I could say when I was doing my presentation for my investment, I know about the audience, I know their age, how much they spend, their frequency, that sort of thing. But what happened was a number of the sites that were listed on my website came to me and said, can we advertise on your website? So I said, okay, send me some money and I'll at the time, I'll work out how to put a banner on the website. And that was how the business started, totally by accident, completely the wrong sort of. It wasn't even a pivot. It was it was an adjunct, a tangent to what we'd done, and that became the business. So again, very long story short, 18 years later, we sold it to a PLC. Since then, that was 3 years ago, and in the last year or so, I've been offering my services, as I say, as a business sounding board. So basically, using all my years of experience to advise, other businesses. I'm simply a business owner who's slightly further down the train track than they are. So that's the short version of a very long story.
So let's go back to you selling the business. Like, just take us through that thought process. So what was it? Obviously, you've invested a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money, a lot of yourself into creating a business, growing a business, and getting it to a size where it is, an attractive prospect for someone to buy. What made you decide to sell? But how did you get to that position? And then once you sold, where were you then? And then where did you come to, well, this is what I'm going to do next?
The selling the business wasn't a proactive thing. However, over the years, it took 18 years to go from kitchen table to sale. But over the years, we'd been approached a lot of times by people saying, can we buy the business? So every time I'd always said, if you give us enough money, I'll quite happily sell. And that's one thing a lot of business owners sometimes don't recognize. Actually, there is a time to take the money off the table. People do get very attached to their business; it's their baby and all that sort of thing. And this sounds a bit odd, but some business owners will understand this. About 6 years before we finally sold, I'd got to the point where actually I was bored. And this is an entrepreneurial thing. You like the idea of a new business and lots of ideas and all that thing. And we got to the point where actually it was ticking over very nicely. And I got bored. So I said, okay, well, let's sell. We went through the sales process. We got an offer on the table and actually didn't sell. But the plan B was always get somebody else in to run it for us. So we went down the route of plan B and he took the title of commercial director, but it was sort of a number two, basically. So he was running the business, which took me emotionally slightly out of the business as well and took me out from a day-to-day point. So when we did come to sell, it wasn't that heart-wrenching thing about selling. And when we got to the point when we sold, it was actually triggered by somebody approaching us again. Somebody approached us and said, we're interested in buying you. I gave them the usual answer, put enough money on the table and quite happy to walk away. What happened was that deal didn't happen, but it triggered a discussion with somebody else who actually did buy us in the end. But by that point, I was emotionally detached from it. It was a successful business. It was doing very, very well. We had a lot of fun with it, but they put enough money on the table and a well-structured enough deal for me to go, yeah, happy to sell. And again, for people who are listening, there's a number of points you need to get your ducks in a row before you sell. And one of them is, as the business owner, you have to be able to not be involved on a day-to-day basis for it to be sellable. Because if not, you haven't got a business to sell.
Yeah.
So it needs to be, you as the business owner need to be taken out of the business and the business still run itself. Yeah. For it to be an asset to buy. And we got, although I hadn't proactively done it like that, we had almost by accident got to that point where we were in that situation. And the other thing to bear in mind is also the structure of the deal. Now, a friend of mine sold his business on Monday. He rang me on Monday, said, I've sold the business. And one of the things he talked about, and we were very fortunate about as well, was the structure of the deal. So most people think, and this isn't the case, you give me £1 million and I'll give you the keys to the office and I'll walk away. Thank you very much. Goodbye. It doesn't work like that. Most deals are structured over a time period. So it might be 50% on day one. It might be 25% on year one and 25% on year two. That's a simple deal structure. Lots of deal structures are all over the place. So again, if you're selling, you need to be aware of not only the price, but the structure of the deal as well. And is there an earn out? Have you got to stay in? How long have you got to stay in for? All that sort of stuff. We were very fortunate. We had a very simple and very quick structure. So although it wasn't, here's the keys, here's the check, it was over a 3-month period. That pretty much was it, which was great. So the sale came about by accident. So we didn't proactively sell ourselves. Since then, so I sort of, and it's weird, when you sell, you then go, okay, what do I do now? Which is, people all talk about, launching businesses, growing businesses, get to the exit. People don't talk about the bit after. We finished on a Friday, and then sort of Monday morning, I might go to the gym.
What am I going to do with myself today?
Absolutely, and it is a little bit of that. So what I started doing, I did a lot of, I've done some voluntary mentoring stuff. So I've done some work with Prince's Trust. I've done some work with Young Enterprise. And I've also been going into schools. And it's interesting, we talked about my career right at the start. One of the things I do is I go into schools to sixth formers and talk to them about careers and CVs and jobs and all that sort of stuff. And, I'm fortunate that I can say to kids, in the same way that you asked me, what did you want to do when you were at school? I sit in front of the sixth formers and say, when you get asked, what do you want to do? It's almost an irrelevant question, because my career path went all over the place, and everybody's will do as well. So I did so I've done some voluntary work, been into schools, did that sort of thing. And then what happened was friends who got businesses started asking me for my advice. Phil, you've been through the sales process. What does it look like? What does it feel like? I've got this issue. Can I just talk to you about it? And I love talking to people about their businesses. So I'm quite happy about doing that. And then when lockdown happened, I thought, actually, people seem to be valuing what I'm saying and the advice I'm giving, and I'm enjoying doing it. And it's flexible enough for me to dip in and dip out as I want. I'm going to do this professionally as a paid for service. And that's how I got to what I'm doing now.
So setting yourself up, getting those first sort of initial clients, was that just a matter of monetizing sort of questions you were already being asked, or did you go in with an approach? I mean, obviously you've been through that whole business journey. Did you go into this with this similar sort of business mindset of, right, how do I monetize this and productize it? And was it the same sort of journey, or was it just kind of evolved a bit more naturally?
It's sort of part evolved and part professionalized. So, having a background in advertising and marketing, and having marketed my own businesses, the first thing was, and it's quite a weird process, we go, okay, what's the product? What are the features and benefits? Who's the audience? All the things you would do with any normal product. How am I going to launch it? How am I going to market it? Where do I find my audience? All that sort of thing. But it's weird doing it for yourself, because you almost decompartmentalize yourself. So I am a person and a product, and I'm thinking, how do I market that product? And who are my audience, and where do I find them, and all that sort of stuff. And the other thing as well is, if you think about my audience, it's business owners, okay, and it's business owners who are growing and want to grow and want to develop and want to improve. But as a business owner, you have to have a certain amount of ego and a certain amount of oomph about you to running your own business isn't right for everybody. But the type of person it is right for that type of person to hold their hand up and go, I need some help, is sort of counterintuitive, because a business owner tends to have that ego and that oomph and that. So because of that, then you go, okay, well, they're going to ask, they're going to need to talk to somebody and pretty much open up, everything, and go, look, I'm really worried about sales, or I can't solve this or whatever. So for them to do that, it's got to be somebody they trust. It's got to be somebody they know. It's got to be somebody hopefully they like. So, know, like, trust is obviously a standard thing lots of people go through. So that's the journey I'm on now, is to getting out there and people first knowing who I am, hopefully liking what I'm saying and what I'm doing, and then getting to the point where, I can trust this guy with my issues. And interestingly, all of my first few clients have all come through previous contacts, which is good, because they've already been through that know, like, trust process already. What I haven't cracked yet is actually having a client that hasn't come through recommendation from somebody I know, or is somebody I know, and that'll be quite a big first step or second step.
How you handle that, and it has to. You kind of have to nail that one, don't you, in a way, because it's like, oh well, it's the person that doesn't know me, doesn't have any sort of background, but you have got a great narrative behind you. You've got a great story already there that you can work off. It's a proven success. It's not like someone can say, well, you didn't do that. It's like, well, I did. So that helps massively. When you were saying that you got bored with the company, do you think that was just because there was no challenge left? You'd met all the challenges. You'd seen that journey through to a point of, well, I've built the business now. I've got it there. There wasn't much else to do apart from scale it. Then, to keep scaling and keep scaling and keep scaling. And maybe at that point it's like, well, I don't want to do that. I want to do something else, but I don't know what I want to do. Is that fair about your sense of boredom with the company?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of ways of looking at it. I think the first is sort of Maslow's hierarchy. When you start up your own business, your first thing is, shit, I need to make a profit. Then it's, okay, have I got enough money to am I then paying myself? Then it's, am I paying myself enough to put food on the table, pay the rent, maybe buy a smarter car, maybe go on a holiday, and it just ticks up. You go up that point of hierarchy. So there's that side of it. Then the other side of it, I always compare it to spinning plates. With a business, you've got loads and loads of plates to spin, and then when you get to the point where you step back and go, all the plates are spinning, and you're sort of Maslow's hierarchy, you've got enough money to live on and buy as many cars as you want, or yachts, or we've never got to that point, but you know what I mean. You've got to the point where actually another pound isn't going to make any difference either way. Then the challenge then becomes, okay, what is the challenge? And you're right, is scaling the right challenge? And I think I got to the point where it was, I've got enough money coming in from this. It's pretty much running itself. And I think, again, with entrepreneurs, one of the exciting things is the whole startup phase. Like, I've got a new idea. Can I take it to market? Can I make it work? How do I get people to buy it? All that they're the exciting things. Things like, the office needs repainting, or I've got to discipline somebody because they didn't turn up for work, or, all the shit that comes with running a business. Oh, Phil, we've run out of toilet roll in the loo. Oh, for fuck's sake, this isn't why I did. This isn't why I started my own business. So you do get to a point, and this is where the boredom is. You get to the point where you go, okay, what is the next challenge? Now, I could have set myself another challenge and go, right, okay, let's double the size of it, let's triple the size of it, let's buy a competitor, which we could have easily done. But it was. But then what happened was, because as I said, we brought in a number two. The new challenge now was training him and developing him and motivating him and sitting with him and deciding what the strategy was. And so it became a new challenge. And I think that was probably the issue is the challenge. It's probably all the challenges had been knocked down. It was, probably no challenges. And it sounds wrong to say I was bored with the business because it was so successful. It's not meant to be arrogant. It's not meant to be, oh, look at me. Really,
it's not derogatory. It's just that's where you'd got to.
Yeah. And also, see, I then thought, okay, well, we could try and do this. And you get to, as an entrepreneur, you get shiny new object syndrome of, oh, here's a new idea. Here's a new market we could go into. And that takes you down lots of rabbit holes that you don't want to be down.
So is this now the perfect job, at least for the moment, for you? Because you're getting to use all of those entrepreneurial skills, you're getting to use all of that experience, and you're getting to see new ideas all the time. And especially if you see one that you get really excited about, it must be just like, oh yeah, let's really make this work. You do a bit of angel investing as well. Do you do that sort of through your business sounding, but do you use that as a way in of actually, this has got all the right ingredients? I think this is really viable, I want to put some money into this? Like, is that how you operate it, or do you just sort of look at various other businesses and kind of invest now and again? Or
yeah, it actually comes a different route. I'm part of a couple of angel investment groups. So we get very, very, very like Dragon's Den, but without all the ego. Yeah, on a regular basis, there's a very large group of people over a couple of networks that I'm in, and businesses come in and present their businesses and go, this is what the business is. Yeah, like Dragon's Den, I want 250 grand for 25% of the business, whatever it might be. And the beauty of that is you end up investing as part of a syndicate. So you have different people with different skills looking at it from different perspectives. And even if it's not something I invest in, it's actually interesting to see what's happening in the market, what the bad ones are, which then give contrast to the good ones. So you look at the ones you go, I don't fancy that, but actually what it then allows you to do, well, obviously you can then almost teach yourself, I don't like that type of business, but I do like this type of business. But what it also allows you to do is, and again, one of the reasons I wanted to do it was actually, again, to put my 10 pence in. So it's not just, here's 10 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand, off you go and tell me how you get on. It's actually, it's what I think the term is grey hair money. So it's actually not only taking the money, not only giving the money in, but actually giving the advice as well. And anybody who is looking for business investment, the money isn't the key thing. The skill set of what people bring in will be the key thing, or should be. So yeah, that's where the angel investment side of things come in. And I've made what we've done two through the angel group so far. One of which seems to be doing quite well. One's sort of ticking along. But that's the nature of angel investment. If you do 10 investments, 6 will just toddle along, 3 will die, and you just hope the one covers the cost of the other ones.
Yeah. Well, that's it. You only need one winner, don't you? And then, if it wins big enough, it covers the cost for the other ones.
Yeah.
I want to go back a little bit now, because I want to just go back to when you were setting up the website and getting those first sort of getting that initial ad money in.
Yeah.
How did you go about sort of pricing that? Did you just take the money that was offered with the first amount that was offered, and then you went from there to kind of like, right, this is my price for this? Like, did they set the price? Did you set the price? How did you get that to work?
It's an interesting one, actually, because as I said, my background was selling advertising in newspapers and magazines. So all I was doing the same thing, but on a website. And for the first few initial years, it was make up a number, tell them how much it is. And all of our clients were non-UK. So it was from a cash flow point of view, it was great, because it was, okay, you send me the money, and when the money lands, I will run the ad. So cash flow was brilliant. But from a pricing point of view, it was, okay, I'm going to charge you $200 for whatever it was we were selling. And the way I worked it was, if they came back and said, can I book again next month? I thought, well, okay, it must be working for them. So I'll put the price up, I'll make it $300.
Yeah. And
in theory, we sort of kept putting the prices up each month until they started squeaking and going, it didn't work this month. So all right, well, we'll drop it down a bit.
Yeah.
So it was a fluid rate card made up as we went along. But actually what happened as the market, so initially it was like, here's an ad, it'll be on this page for a month and it'll cost you $500, whatever it might be. As the market developed, the market became led by the affiliate marketing model. So it was, in very simple terms, I will run your ad for free, but you will pay me back a share of the money people spend coming from our website. That then gave us a fluid marker as to what the value was. So we could do both. We could either say we'll do it on an affiliate basis, or having seen what the affiliate numbers are, we can actually fix a price on it. And whichever way you slice it, we'll end up with approximately the same amount of money.
Yeah.
But yeah, the pricing was keep putting it up until somebody doesn't want to pay it. And by that point, the market we were very fortunate. We were in a growing market, that there were new people coming on board and going, right, okay, I want to advertise there. And you go, well, it's $500, $1,000, $1,500, whatever it might be. And we created we created new ad positions as we grew and tested them. I said, okay, I've got this idea for an ad, here or there or whatever it might be. So we put it out to the market and go, this is our new ad position. We're testing it at this price, $500, whatever it might be. You can have it for $400 if you give us feedback on how well it went. And then the client will give us feedback and go, we got 10 players from it or something. We're right, okay, we're underpricing this one, so we'll put it up again. So it was very, very fluid.
Yeah. Do you think it would have worked if you hadn't had the ad background?
That's a very good question. I don't know, actually, because it's hard to tell. Because if you gave it to somebody who hasn't got an ad background, they might not have come up with the solutions we came up with.
Or they might have kept their prices low. They might have just have been like, well, they're paying us money, so,
Yeah. It's an interesting question, actually. But I think one of the reasons why it did work, or at least we saw the opportunity, was because of my background. This was like, oh, this is what I've done. I've done this before.
Yeah.
The difference between selling a full color page ad in a magazine and selling a banner ad on a website is exactly the same. It's exactly the same thing. It's like you send us your ad, we'll put it on our product, and you pay us this much money.
Yeah.
The upside, or sometimes the downside, is actually online advertising. You can see what's worked and what hasn't worked, because you can track all your clicks, you can track your conversions and your values and all that sort of stuff, which obviously you can't necessarily do in a newspaper ad or a magazine ad, but that might be a branding ad as well.
Let's go back to what you're doing at the moment. You're doing all of this as a sole trader, the business sounding board.
Yep.
Working on everything yourself, so you'll be producing all the content, all your social media marketing, all your bookings and everything. How is that as a change? I mean, if you could have it ideally what you're doing now the same, would you have like an assistant or someone to do bookings and things like that, or are you happy doing everything yourself? Is that part of the charm of it, or how do you feel about doing everything again?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, actually, because on one hand, I'm doing this because it's a lifestyle business. And some people frown at the phrase lifestyle business. Lots of people are very, very happy having a lifestyle business and it not growing to be multi-million pounds. That's absolutely fine, and that's what I'm doing because it fits. Conversely, my sort of entrepreneurial spirit and my marketing spirit is going, right, okay, I need more clients, I need more marketing, I need to put things out more, and you compare yourself to other people and other operations and all that sort of stuff. But as it stands at the moment, I'm happy producing the content I'm producing. And the vast majority of that is either on LinkedIn, on my website, or via my newsletter. And a lot of the time I'm repurposing stuff across all three. So anybody who's on my newsletter database and follows me on LinkedIn will see similar stuff. Now, some of it's not the same because they're different marketing medium, and obviously appearing on podcasts as well as a marketing role. So yeah, I'm happy doing all the stuff on my own. I think one of the issues is what I'm trying to do, and we talked about know, like, trust previously, is by the content I'm putting out, I'm trying to do a number of things. One is to say, look, this guy knows what he's talking about because he's been there and done that and all that sort of thing. One of it, and some of it is just awareness. And I've had this 2 or 3 times that I've bumped into people and they've said, bloody hell, you're all over the place, aren't you? Now, they've not, and the weird thing is, they don't comment on LinkedIn, they don't they don't interact, they're not on the newsletter, but they're seeing it and hearing it, which is great. So on one side, I'm quite happy just creating the stuff I'm creating, and most of it is coming from experience or stuff I've done before, or just I'll see things and go, oh, ping, that'll create an idea. And actually, my list of content ideas is just grows all the time, because I could write about that, And I find it fascinating. People go, I don't want to do social media and I don't want to do content because I don't know what to write about. And I'm thinking, for fuck's sake, I've got tons of the stuff here. So I'm enjoying that side of things. And I think if the business got to the size where I needed to bring somebody on, then it's probably not doing what I want it to do, because then it becomes a job. I mean, obviously I want it to be a job, but I don't want it to be a 9 to 5, 5 days a week, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So that brings me into a kind of work-life balance, wellness kind of arena. So, is part of it just like you want to work less and you want to do interesting work? I mean, what's the goal for you here? Obviously, you want some of that there. You want to keep it interesting for yourself. What are the other kind of factors that you're looking for that made you decide to do this work?
I think I enjoy the first thing is I enjoy doing. I'm fortunate enough having sold the business that there isn't that demand to have a job and have to work. So then the question is, okay, well, what do you want to do? And it's people think, oh, great. And I've talked about this. I've mentioned it before. You sell the business and you go, shit, what do we do now? You can't play golf every single day. And I don't play golf anyway. And you can't go to the gym, 9 to 5. So you've got to do something. And I'm far too young to retire. So I've got to do something that's interesting and stimulating. But at the same time, I don't want to be chained to a desk in a 9 to 5 and do a job. So, yeah, doing this, I think, ticks a number of boxes. It's got the flexibility that I'm not doing it 9 to 5 and Monday to Friday. I've got the fact that I can do it from anywhere. So I can go, I've just come back from being in Spain. I talk to clients from there. So there's no issue doing that. And yeah, it's stimulating. And I mean, the real thing I'm aiming for is for clients to say, yeah, Phil, you made a difference. You really helped me. And the last client I dealt with, he sent me a very lovely testimonial. One of the things was, he said, you've allowed me to fall back in love with my business. And that's great. And that is, I suppose that's the end game, is for me to have clients who send me a testimonial. That's the end game. If I've done that, then everything else is fine.
So that's made me think, who was the business sounding board for you when you were starting your business up?
So it's interesting that the sounding board for me was actually my wife. Now, we started the business together because it started from home. It took us 5 years before we got any staff. And then she wasn't working day to day, but was always there and knew what was going on and was in interviews with people we took on board and all that sort of stuff. So she was the sounding board. But we had, at 4 different points, we had external consultants came in and advised us on the business. And they were really, really helpful. Now, whether a husband or wife or partner is the right person to be a sounding board, I'm not sure, because at some point you've got to tell your client your baby's ugly. Now, your wife, partner, husband may well not want to do that. And my wife was quite happy telling me, Phil, that's a shit idea. Don't do that. But at the same time, somebody completely independent. And again, this is one of the things that I can bring to the table is there's no politics. It's confidential. It's, if I give you advice or point at something, it's because that's the best thing to do, not because I'm thinking, if you speak to your sales manager or sales director and go, what do you think of this? He's not going to go, Phil, that's fucking shit, and you're talking bollocks, because he'll get, all right, he won't get sacked, but you know what I mean? So you need somebody, as I say, to tell you your baby's ugly, and only certain people can do that. And one of the fourth of the 4 people who came in externally, he did a brilliant exercise with my team and sat down and asked them all confidentially, okay, what do you think? What's good? What's bad? What should we do? What should we don't do? Blah, 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 blah. And then rolled it all together and sort of presented it back to me and the management team. And I've actually done this for a couple of clients as well. And one of the things I was told via this was, we talked about shiny new object syndrome, was the team basically said, Phil, will you just get out of the way and let us get on with doing our jobs? Now, nobody's going to tell me that face to face.
Yeah.
But cumulatively, it came through the consultant. And again, I am able, or any coach or external mentor or sounding board is able to say to a business owner, you're in the way of the business. So that's where the value comes, or any other hard truths that need to be told. To have somebody to say to you, do you know what? You're going to have to shut the business down. It really is not working. It's, wasting your money. a member of staff's not going to tell you that. Your husband or wife might not tell you that. And that's the value of external advice. Not always to show your business, but the hard truths and the ugly babies. That's where the value is. And we had huge step changes after we had people coming in and doing exactly that. And I did get out of the way.
Does it take a Yorkshireman then to do this kind of job?
Absolutely. We're the best at doing this, aren't we?
That's bloody wrong. That's bloody wrong.
Yeah. You're doing that wrong.
When you're looking at businesses, or when you look back at your own business, what I want to get to here is I think there's some tension between the business that's going to succeed is the business that's filling a gap in the market. And the gap in the market is generally someone doing something or something in some way that's not being done at the moment. But then the business mentality is a kind of, we know what works, things need to be done this way. If you want the money, you're going to have to do it this way. Do you understand what I'm getting at here? It's like there's some tension between how the business world is kind of like, right, this is how it all works. But they know that there are gaps in the market that can be filled. But like with your bingo business, it's like, you take it to William Hill and like anyone with the foresight would be like, well, that's obviously going to happen at some point. Yes, we should do that now. But at the time, you're like, well, we make money this way, doing this. If we added that, that's an additional risk. So what's your experience in that kind of that area of tension, and how do you resolve it for yourself, I suppose, is the best way I can formulate a question for that.
I think this may or may not answer your question, but I think what you're getting at, and this comes up a lot with the angel investment pitches, is what is the problem you are solving?
Yeah.
Okay. And why are you the best person / company to solve that problem? Now, there may already be other, and this is a secondary thing, there may already be other people solving that problem. So why would they use your solution to solve that problem rather than either somebody else's or, more difficultly, the solution they're using already? So the more painful the problem, usually, the higher you can charge. Yeah. So and I used to say this, our website was very easy to copy in a simplistic basis. So, for example, you could quite easily create an online auction site similar to eBay. Yeah. So you go, right, we've got an online auction site. Why would I want to use it rather than using eBay? Now, this is a very extreme example. Now, when eBay came to market, if I remember right, I don't know if there were any other auction sites. So it's a different market. They're coming out. We've got something completely brand new. So you're either going in completely brand new, which goes back to the online bingo example with William Hill. It's like, does that problem exist? Does that desire exist? Or you're in a situation where you're going, okay, this problem exists. Other people have recognized it, but actually we solve it better. So again, if you take the example of Airbnb. So, but before, and again, I'm sure there were other people before Airbnb who didn't do it right. But, previously you book a hotel or a friend who would let you have a room. But they created a market that didn't exist or solved a solution, or they identified a problem and came up with a solution of people with spare rooms or spare houses who wanted a market to rent them at.
Well, they kind of monetized couch surfing, didn't they? They kind of made it a little bit more executive, charged money for it, and
But what they did, and this is what, and again going back to my website or our website, I always used to say to people, why would somebody come to our website rather than somebody else's? And you can ask that question of any person's business. Why should somebody use your business compared to somebody else's business who does the same thing? So why would I go to Subway rather than Greggs? In a very simplistic term. So if you go, I've always wanted to create my own sandwich shop. Fantastic. Go and knock yourself out. Why would I want to come to your sandwich shop rather than go to Greggs? Taking all the politics out of why you'd want to go and get a cheese pasty from Greggs. But you see the point. So the simple question for any, and it's a horrible question. It's a horrible question. Why should I use you rather than the person down the road who does the same thing? Now, if you can solve that person's problem better, it might be quicker, it might be cheaper, it might be better quality, then why do people use Amazon Prime? Because it arrives tomorrow. Amazon Prime will end up being more expensive than going another route. But actually the pain point isn't the product. The pain point is I want it now. And that's what they've identified. So it's always a case of what is the pain point, and again, it might be, why do I go to your sandwich shop rather than Greggs? Well, actually, it's nearer. Might be more expensive, but actually the pain point is I'm hungry, I want it now.
Yeah.
So anybody's product has to identify what the pain point is and why they solve it better than somebody else.
Okay. So with that in mind, if you're thinking like as a new business, I think the difficulty there can be, making it concise and getting it down to one or two or three things. If you I'm thinking, I'm going to, using the sandwich shop example, is like, what can you bring to the market that's different? Well, I'll bring ambience and personality, and I'll be, I'll have it decorated this way. And all of those things matter and they count, and they are things that you have in mind when you're purchasing. But that's a lot of spiel to go through, and you can't really, it's just saying, well, I'm going to do it better. And that's not something that you want to buy into as an investor of like, well, are you going to do it better? How? So what I guess I'm getting at here is how do you kind of distill those things, the things that that you can do or that you want to do or that you're going to do better? How do you kind of get to the point where you can put a name on those things? Is that just through doing? I mean, do you have to just go through the sort of doing stuff until you figure it out, and then once you've figured it out, you're then in a position to start moving forward and like really selling the business? Or does that all need to be in place first to make it work, I suppose?
Yeah, I think it's to do, it depends if you're talking about getting investment or whether you're just talking about getting customers. And I think it's, we all eat lunch, right? And again, we're doing a sandwich analogy. Do you really want to sit in a Subway to eat your sandwich, or would you rather sit in a bijou cafe that's lovely decorated and tablecloths and all that sort of thing? Some people just want a sandwich and they'll get a Subway. Some people do want to sit in a nice coffee shop and linen napkins and jams with little bits of string wrapped around them and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And it depends on your market. It depends on your market, depends on your audience and that sort of thing. And then it comes down to marketing and how do you market that sort of thing? And that then opens a huge can of worms about marketing and audiences and brand and all that sort of stuff. But it is just about getting your message and your benefit or benefits out to your audience. So there's no point in you opening a bijou coffee shop and sticking in the middle of a city centre where all the office workers are, because they just want to grab a sandwich, get out and go and sit back at their desk. Now, if you put it in the middle of, I'm in North Leeds, so if you put it in the middle of Scarcroft or Wetherby, put some nice tables outside and, make it very nice. Fantastic. That's what people want to do. So it's product and marketing and solutions. And again, go back to the pain point. The pain point for a busy office worker is, give me a sandwich, give me it quick, and I'm out. The pain point, if you call it a pain point, for somebody wandering around Wetherby is, my pain is I want somewhere that's nice and quiet and relaxed and quality, and that's the solution I want. And I don't want to sit in a subway on a plastic table. It's horses for courses, and again, one of the things we benefited from, and a lot of people find counterintuitive, is actually niching.
Yeah.
If you're really, really focused and really niched, you will get a better product. So somebody gave me the example recently. I don't know whether it's a true product or not, a true story or not, is a personal trainer who specializes in post-pregnancy women. Okay? So if you're a post-pregnancy woman, if you've had a baby and you want to get back in shape, this is the guy, because he's an expert. That's what he does. Now, realistically, any personal trainer could work with somebody who's just had a pregnancy, but because he's niched, and and conversely, he or she could work with anybody and do any personal training, but he's niched so much that he becomes a short list of one.
Yeah.
And that's where you need to be. You need to be on a short list of one, that you're the person to go to. In the same way that I ideally want to be a short list of one, somebody gets to the point where they realize they need a sounding board and they go, it's got to be Phil Fraser.
Yeah.
God knows why you'd want to do that, but you know what I mean.
So, but isn't that sort of like hyper niche sort of stuff? That's only really viable online, surely, unless you're, like if you're a shop, like, well, the Harley Davidson shop, for example, in Leeds, will be, that'll sell Harley Davidsons to the whole of Yorkshire. And, I'm sure from other areas, there'll be certain things that they can only get there. But, that's niche, but it's still a big brand. Whereas that guy who's doing the personal training, like post-pregnancy personal training, I think it'd be really difficult to do in a city unless it was, like a decent size. You need at least 1 million people there to sort of have the customer base. No?
No, you don't. No? Let's look at what you've just said. The Harley Davidson shop. Okay, I know the one you mean. I drive past it on a regular basis. That's a niche. I might be a motorcyclist, and I want to buy a new bike. But if I have not decided I want a Harley Davidson, I'm not the target audience. So that Harley shop sells to Harley people, and that is a niche. That's a niche of. Think about how many people ride motorbikes and how many people ride Harleys. I don't know what the figures are. I'd guess 5-10%, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's a niche. It's a niche brand. And it's not like a motorcycle shop that sells multiple brands, because that's got a bigger audience. Yes, it's still niche because it's selling to motorcyclists, not car drivers. And again, if you think about going back to numbers, if you think about your personal trainer, or the personal trainer example I gave, let's do some maths. Let's say he does hour sessions and he wants to do 4 sessions a day, 5 days a week. So he only needs 20 clients. And that's if they only do 1 session a week. If they do 2 sessions a week, he only needs 10 clients. Now, you go and stand outside Jimmy's and count the people who are going into the maternity unit. It doesn't take a lot of people. Doesn't take a lot of his universe to fill his sales book.
Yeah.
And often people, you ask people, who's your audience? They go, everybody. Well, there's 2 things. Number 1, it isn't. and number two, if they all came to you, you wouldn't be able to service them anyway.
Yeah.
So actually, that's nonsense.
Yeah.
And also, if you go into a room of 100 people, and let's say 4 are your audience, whatever product it is you're selling, you're irrelevant to 96 of them. Fantastic, because you're on a short list of 1 for the 4.
Yeah.
You're never going to sell anything to everybody, irrelevant of what you're selling.
Yeah.
And you won't be able to service them anyway, unless you're a massive company, huge company.
Yeah.
So niching is the way to go. It depends. Niche doesn't have to be minute; it has to be specialist.
I think as well, the thing you get stuck in though is if you start thinking about something being niche, your mind goes into, but then I've excluded everybody else.
Fantastic.
It's kind of yeah.
Fantastic.
But you're resistant to that because you're like, well, then how do I get to them if I want to get to them? Well, so
you don't need to. You don't need to. You know, if you're realistic, you know, and anybody who's listening, if they look at their business and they're realistic and say, okay, what's our optimum number of clients we can service to a proper level? That might be single figures, it might be double figures, it might be thousands. Yeah, there are so many people out there who aren't your audience. Why are you wasting your time on those? If you can service the right ones properly, you don't need, 4 out of 100. You don't need the 96. Yes, it is slightly counterintuitive to say, oh, I could probably do a job for them, but you end up being beige and trying to speak to everybody, and you end up speaking to nobody.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, there is the caveat that it depends on the product and it depends on the market, it depends on what you do. A sandwich, go back to the sandwich, we don't know why we're talking about sandwiches. Is it nearly lunchtime?
Nearly lunchtime.
You go back to the sandwich shop, and a sandwich shop realistically could say, yeah, we could serve everybody sandwiches, as many as you want. But actually, if you've only ordered 100 bread rolls today, you can only service 100 people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's take it the other way around. Say, I'm going to open a vegan sandwich shop. Yeah, obviously everybody can eat vegan food, but actually, if you're a vegan, you're going to go to that sandwich shop. So you're niching. But you might think, oh, what about the people who want a meat sandwich? Well, they're not your audience. You've got, there are enough vegans out there for you to get to the point where people go, you have to go to that vegan shop or that vegan sandwich shop because it's the best vegan sandwich shop. You wouldn't go, you've got to go to that shop because it sells everything.
Yeah.
That becomes a beige shop compared to a niche shop.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. Right, so I'm going to try and find some more questions. What I am going to touch on is Brexit, because I'm asking sort of everybody about Brexit. Oh no, the dreaded word. Not like, besides the politics of it, just the realistic, the kind of fallout. So anyone that you're working with, has this been anything that's cropped up for them? Has anyone been worried? Has anybody said, my business is no longer viable, or my business is going to be super viable now, this is much better for me? Like, has it impacted your work at all? Are you seeing any impact at the moment? Do you expect to see anything?
I would say, well, it's not affected any of my work or any of my clients to date. And, I've never done any exporting or anything like that. So I therefore probably not end up advising any clients on anything, or any client who does exporting. So I would say no. I think there might be secondary and tertiary things that come via it. So it might be, one of my clients is a children's nursery, and it might be that they employ staff who historically came from Europe and now can't, but it's not something really on my business agenda or landscape for my clients, I don't think.
The other thing as well, I want to just clarify. So when you're doing the business sounding board, it's for any sort of business. It's not. You're not just online focused?
Again, interesting question, because when I first started and we talked about audience or customer avatars previously, I thought, okay, well, my background is advertising, marketing, and online, so that's probably where my clients will be. But what's happened, what I've found is, it's actually the type of business owner who is my client. So if you're a business owner and you're not interested in developing and growing and changing and being challenged, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, you're not relevant to me. Conversely, if you are looking to develop yourself, looking to improve as a business owner, looking for help and support, looking to change, looking to improve, then actually it doesn't matter what industry you're in, because it's either going to be a marketing issue, a strategy issue, an HR issue, a sales issue, or a finance issue. It's just the same buckets, but different type. I was going to say different shit, same bucket. You know what I mean? They're always the same sort of problems.
Yeah.
But it's the type of business owner that makes the difference. So I'm sector agnostic. Size wise, I think anything over about 5 million is probably getting bigger than I ever experienced. So difficult for me to, if you've got issues with multi-location or international or going to IPO or something like that, I can't really advise because I've never done it. Yeah, that's so sector agnostic, but I think it's the type of business owner is the important thing, and somebody who wants to learn, wants to develop. And we talked earlier about egos and all that sort of thing. You know, if I'm going to come in and go, I'm not going to go no and yes, but if I'm going to come in and challenge you, you've got to want to listen and you've got to want to change, or at least be open to it, rather than be somebody, no, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. You can't tell me I know what I'm doing. You don't know what I'm doing.
You don't need
like, well, I won't tell you then.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You could be, you can have a business exactly the same as my business. So I've got exactly the same experience as you, but if you're not going to listen and you don't want to learn and you don't want to develop, then you're not a client.
Yeah. I mean, that takes me to sort of, we've touched on egos, and obviously there's got to be a certain amount of ego there to start your own business and so on, but you also need that sort of self-belief to kind of do the thing, but then you don't want so much self-belief that it gets in the way. So I mean, do you screen your clients at all? I mean, obviously you're working with people that you know more at the moment, but I mean, can you imagine yourself sort of screening clients of like, can I work with this person? Would you normally sort of have an introductory meeting and kind of get a sense of the person? Like, how do you manage the emotions and so on of all of that? Yeah,
I think the clients I've had and some of the clients I've not had, we've had sort of, what do you call them? It's not, I'm not checking them, but a pre working together chat. And I think it's probably more from them testing me out than me testing them out. But at the same time, you do get the feeling when you speak to people, you go, well, I could work with this guy or this girl, or they don't really sound like they really want my services, which is absolutely fine. There's no point in me banging my head against a brick wall. So yes, I want to work with the right people, but I think it becomes self-evident that either they don't want to work with me, or if I don't want to work with them, I sort of make it quite clear that I kick it into long grass or something. Let's have a talk about it in 3 months' time, or something like that. Would you say that comes quite quickly? Is that something that you can sense fairly early on? Obviously not all the time, but most of the time we're kind of like, we're on the same wavelength. Does that come quite quick? Yeah, I think the other thing is clients and potential clients are going to be self-selecting anyway. I'm not out there knocking on doors and cold calling people. Hey, do you want a business sounding board? Who are you? They're going to be, at some point, they are going to self-select by contacting me. Yeah. Now, it might then be that we have a chat and I actually feel I can't help them, or more likely they're at the wrong stage of their business journey. But actually talking together and me sort of explaining what I do and how I can benefit them, they go, actually, I'm not ready yet. Yeah. And I've had a few conversations like that. Yeah. Often it's they're too early in the business journey, and I'm quite happy to have a chat with them and discuss things and just bounce a few things around. And I had this with a potential client a few months ago, and she came back to me and said, look, not ready yet, but thank you very much for all of that. How much do I owe you? It's just a chat. She actually got value out of our first discussion. So I think the vast majority of the time it's self-selecting. Yeah, I mean, I kind of would have expected that as well, and people saying to you that they're not ready yet. But I would guess as well that the people who are saying that they're not ready are going to be excellent clients, because they know they're not there. Like, whether they just feel it themselves, like maybe the business is there, but they're not there yet. Yep. But they have that self-awareness to know that I don't need this yet, or I can't afford this yet, or it's not going to benefit me right now, but this could be really useful in X amount of months. And I think, they're people to watch, I would guess, as well, because it's like,
they've obviously got that self-awareness that I think is key. You know, you need to have that self-awareness to be able to bring someone else on board and to take that criticism and to not take it personally. So I think I've covered a lot of what I want to cover. I do want to kind of touch on climate change and ecology stuff. So I'm going to try and do this on each episode now. So is that something, I mean, it's a difficult one because it's, you know, it's the elephant in the room. It's kind of like, we all need to pay attention to this big thing that we don't want to pay attention to. And it's difficult to kind of set up in business and go, yeah, but also be sustainable, and to build that in at the beginning as well. Like even myself, I'm quite sort of conscious of it, but setting up a business, I'm like, well, I can't really think about that until I've got money coming in, until I've done this. You know, you need to get to that point of meeting that hierarchy of needs before you can actually think about something that seems like a luxury item when it shouldn't be a luxury item. Have you had any discussions about the sort of ecological side of business, or worked with businesses that are thinking about that? I mean, does it come up at all for you in the work that you're doing?
Yeah, it's not come up at all with any of my clients or anything I've done to date. But I think it's one of those things that I think people are a lot more obviously aware of now. And I think if when you're setting up a business, if you have that thought in mind, depends how green you want to be and all that sort of stuff. But there are things you can put in place immediately, and things that probably 5-10 years ago you wouldn't have thought about, and people now have to change to do that. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I think the simplest thing we had was we had a recycling bin in our office, but we didn't have originally. And being carbon neutral and using recycled paper, whatever it might be. If you put those things in place when you first start, depending on what they might be, then it just becomes part of the fabric of the business rather than something you proactively have to do. But it's not something that's come up on discussions with any of my clients yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think it will more and more. As we go forward, it'll get to the point where it'll bleed into business language and banking language, and then it'll just be something that we naturally discuss. But yeah, it's not something that you can easily think about, I don't think. What was the other thing that I wanted to touch on there? Damn it. I really do have to start taking notes while I'm doing these.
There you go. There's your learning for today. Take notes, or make notes before you start.
Well, your question of what's perfect 12 months from now for you. Perfect 12 months from now is having someone there that I can just do the interviewing, not watch the clock, not think of questions, not make notes, just like be in the conversation. That's my perfect.
There you go. If you take that, and it's something you referenced there that we haven't talked about. The thing I do ask my clients, one of the first questions is, what does perfect look like in 12 months' time? And a lot of people go, well, that's a strange question. And actually what it does is it focuses the client on what it is they're trying to do. Because then there's a number of things that happen. First is you go, okay, what does perfect look like? And you go, right, okay, that actually sets a target. And that's the first thing. But what you then do, you go through a process of going, okay, well, if that's what we want to do, what needs to be in place for us to do that? You go, okay, if that needs to be in place, what do we need to do to make that happen? And then who's going to do it and when you're going to do it by and how much it can cost. So in your case, if you're saying in 12 months' time, I want to be sort of word perfect and time perfect and make notes and all that sort of thing. The first thing is, buy a pad and a pen. It's almost that simple, or buy myself a clock. It does, or review what I did last time that was wrong, and actually sets yourself a strategy, and then if logic works properly, you end up delivering what it is you're trying to do, because you've then said and the example I always give is, okay, let's say you said, or I've got two examples. Let's say you said you want to sell the business by the end of next year. Okay, so what do you need to do? Well, you need to need to get all your ducks in a row. You need to get all your paperwork in place. You need to speak to an accountant. You need to maybe speak to a lawyer. You need to research the market. You need to maybe stop spending that much money on entertainment, and maybe not take on that extra member of staff so it looks more profitable. Maybe reduce your own salary. There's lots of things that fall out of just one sentence, which is we want to sell a company. Now, conversely, if you said we want to buy a competitor in a year's time, you go, okay, what do we need to do that? Well, we need to research the market. We need to see who's out there. We need to work out how it fits. We need to maybe stop spending money so we've got a bit of a war chest to buy that company with. We maybe need to look at where it fits strategically. How does it make a difference? What are the pros and cons we're doing? So again, that lots and lots of things for who we're going to talk to. Do I give it to a project manager internally? Lots and lots of things fall out of one answer to one question.
Yeah.
But actually, those two examples, you've got a myriad of completely different things you're going to do just by answering that one question.
Yeah. I think it's kind of like a refinement of brainstorming in a way. It's kind of like, what's your goal? What's your ideal? Right. We'll put that on the notice board. How do you get there?
Correct. Absolutely.
A bit like
very simple. Yeah.
Yeah. Like a critical path, like, the Buckminster Fuller sort of, how do we get to space? Okay.
Yeah. I've used this as an example when I've talked to people about this okay, what's all right, it's not 12 months. Okay, what's the goal? I want to go to London. Okay, right. So how are we going to get there? Well, we could go by coach. We could drive. We could fly. We could walk. We could cycle. Right. We've decided we go by train. Okay, if we're going to go by train, what's next? Well, somebody needs to work out what's the timetable. Which train are we getting? Okay, all right. Well, we're going to get that. So how are we going to get to the station before we get there? Right, you've got to book a taxi for us to get to the station. Where are we going in London? Actually, we're going to a hotel. Right, somebody needs to book the hotel room. Okay, how are we going to get from the train station? Right, okay, you're going to book. So actually, you've now got people booking hotels, booking taxis, booking train tickets, and then you go, and then it happened. But until you've decided where you want to go, you can't decide what you're going to do. It doesn't work from the bottom. So we go, hey, I'm going to book a taxi. You go, where to? So it's that simple. It's a simple waterfall thing, and it's not my initiative, not my idea. Actually, the original idea came from Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Successful Business People, which is start with the end. One of his habits is start with the end in mind. That's all it is.
It's like that. You must have come across that, on project management trainings where they do the how to use a Gantt chart. Well, let's look at making a cup of tea. You've got to boil the kettle, and then you get the cup ready.
It's the same. Your target is I'm going to have a cup of tea, right? What needs to be there? We need to put water in the kettle. We need to find a tea bag. Then we got a mug. Yeah, it's simple.
Yeah, and they are the kind of things that I don't know whether they do them in schools now, but it would be so useful in schools of just like, think about it like this, break everything down into steps. And also, this is most of what you're actually going to be doing in workplaces, of like taking a process, breaking it apart or building it up and making it work, essentially. Right, so let's try and finish up on something. Is there anything that you want to touch on?
I think we've covered an enormous amount of stuff. I think the only thing for me to say is if anybody wants to get in contact with me, you can find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
I'm usually on LinkedIn most days, or go to my website, which is philfraser.co.uk. Yeah. Don't go to philfraser.com because that's a medieval reenactment costume company. So if you see a guy wearing sort of Robin Hood stuff with a longbow, that ain't me. You're on the wrong website. You want to go to philfraser.co.uk. And if you do, sign up for my newsletter, and you'll receive lots of stuff like this that we've talked about. And often you'll see pictures of my chickens as well.
Oh, nice. Okay, so I've got a question for the end. So what's for the future? And let's take it let's go from your last business. So 18 years from now, where do you see yourself being? Still doing this, or do you think you'll have come up with new ideas, or where do you see
18 years from now, bloody hell. You'd probably sit in an armchair dribbling and staring out of a window, I think. if I could carry on doing this sort of stuff, I enjoy doing it. It's fun, and I'm adding value to clients and clients' businesses. So yeah, I'd be happy to carry on doing this.
Yeah. I think it's an excellent thing to get into, and I think it's an excellent use of your talents and sort of, because you could have gone back into, right, I'm going to start another business and I'm going to scale that up. But it's kind of like, well, you've done that.
Yeah. There is still a little bit of me that says, well, hang on, did you just get lucky? Were you just a one-trick pony? Could you do it again? And that is a bit of an itch that still needs scratching, but I'm not sure whether I'll actually ever get around to it. Or I might write a book as well. That's the other itch to scratch. Write a business book.
Write a business book. Thank you to Phil for being my guest, and thanks to you, dear listener. I know you're there. I can see you clicking. I've now thanked everybody else involved in the show except for you, so thank you for listening, and thank you for 400 downloads. If you're listening to this show, then I assume you have some connection to Leeds, like living here or being from here. If you're that person in Leeds or from Leeds and you haven't done a record for this show yet, please send me a message now and let's record your working hours session. Just think, if you're interviewed now and then you're still alive at the end of this decade and we still have electric power, breathable air and our heads above water, then you will be able to listen back to your interview and be all nostalgic about how different everything is now. Please remember to like, share and subscribe to this show. Please consider becoming a champion for this project and this show on Patreon. It's only £1 a month for loiners, so go to patreon.com/workinghourspod to sign up and offer regular support. If you become a champion, you'll be helping me to get to the stage of publishing 2 episodes a week. At that point, as a loiner champion, you'll be getting 8 early release episodes of Working Hours each month for just £1, and you would have helped the show to get there. If you like the idea of this show, then why wouldn't you sign up and help it out? I will get to 1,000 of these, but that doesn't depend on me, it depends on you. If you can and do help me, then I will hit that goal. If you like, share and provide financial contributions, I can improve my ability to reach those 1,000 loiners. And of course, for any loiner listening to this, the biggest help is if you actually come on this podcast. It's not scary, it's not stressful, and your voice will sound so much better with intro and outro music bracketing it. You can also appear anonymously if that helps. I'm really interested to hear from anyone in Leeds or from Leeds in whatever industry, sector or role you are in. What is your experience? How do you feel about work? What do you like and not like? What do you do, Leeds? Email this podcast now, workinghourspod@western-studios.com with your short bio and suggestions of your availability. Or just send me feedback, questions, comments, queries, whatever. You can follow this show on Twitter @WorkingHours3 and on Instagram @WorkingHoursPodLeeds. Next time on Working Hours, 2 more episodes are dropping. Different Leeds time, same Leeds channel. Working Hours is presented, edited and recorded by Simon Treen for Western Studios Leeds Limited. The music was The Bees from Chopin's Etudes, which is in the public domain and was taken from museopen.org.